Hello and welcome to a special Songwriters Road Trip 10, featuring interviews conducted during my trip to the Dutch Mason Blues Festival in August of 2013. I'm your host, Terry Parsons. While on the road, we spent a couple of days in Miramichi, New Brunswick, where I had the opportunity to meet Eldon Thiel, a young singer-songwriter whose one-man band goes by the name of ZWERG. On today's show, we'll feature that interview, plus music from his latest release, a unique collection of songs from a CD called Whims and Words. My guest today is ZWERG. You're listening to the Songwriters on 93.5 CHMR-FM. I'm your host, Terry Parsons. Very pleased to say that my guest today is Eldon Thiel. Eldon, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I was reading on your webpage, it says you started out very young.
Yeah, I started singing in church about 3 years old. My father was always a minister of music, so he'd get me up there singing. And I started taking piano when I was 5. He started teaching me when I was 5. You know, the father-son thing kind of had some tumultuous times, so I started studying at the Notre Dame d'Acadie School of Music, and that was in Moncton. It's run by Catholic nuns. It's very strict and very prestigious, and I started taking piano there.
You record and perform as a one-man band known as ZWERG. What's ZWERG?
ZWERG is a German word. It means little person. I used to say dwarf, but I was told that that's not very politically correct anymore. But I always meant it as more the mythological sense of the word, dwarf, because they're tenacious warriors, even though they're small in stature. And I've done a little modeling, and I'm very short for male models. So I'm at about 5'7", 5'8", so I am a dwarf in that respect.
We're back on the Songwriters. I'm your host, Terry Parsons. My guest today is Eldon Thiel, who performs and records as ZWERG, and we're featuring music from the latest project, which is Whims and Words, released in 2012. This album is the result of a bit of a road trip, isn't it?
Yes, the album is indeed a road trip. I moved home from Toronto in 2006. I was acting there for 6 years, and I had taken some sojourns into electronica and some avant-garde kind of pop music. When I came home, I wanted to do something that was marketable locally, because we have a lot of rich musical heritage in the East Coast, and I wanted to explore the folk music and right up to the modern music and the modern scenes in Halifax, all the Atlantic provinces, St. John's as well. And so what I decided to do was an East Coast road trip and divide all the songs into the different provinces. So you have PEI and New Brunswick lumped together as herring chokers and spuds. And then you have Nova Scotians and capers. I mean, it's all Nova Scotia, but capers have their own identity, of course. So I called it blue nosers and capers. And then you have cod kissers and labs. All of the artwork in the album, there's quite a photo album of the road trip in there. We took photos all around Atlantic Canada. In 2008, my best friend and I took a trip to Newfoundland and Labrador and took tons of pictures up there. And I must say, even though I'm a proud New Brunswicker, Newfoundland and Labrador is my favorite province.
You mentioned the artwork and the packaging of the CD. Among the artwork, there's actually some really nice paintings.
Yeah, they were done by my brother. My brother is a full-time visual artist. He's an abstract painter. He's done residencies in Costa Rica and Iceland, and he's doing a show in Paris this fall, and Tunisia as well. So there's some pieces by him in the artwork. He was very generous in letting me use them for free, and hopefully it'll generate some business for him. But yes, he's very talented. Check him out, Jared Betts.
It's interesting you came back from Toronto to New Brunswick to do this, because we have a saying in Newfoundland, you can take the boy out of the bay, but you can't take the bay out of the boy. And I think it also applies to anybody from New Brunswick, doesn't it?
Indeed. Actually, when I was in Toronto acting, I missed home so much I got a tattoo of New Brunswick on my right forearm, so I carry my home around with me wherever I go. I should have got it on my shoulder as an actor, because there aren't too many characters that come from New Brunswick, and everybody would be like, what the hell is that? And sometimes the makeup artists are like, you shouldn't have got that. That'll ruin your career. But, there are a lot of successful actors who have tattoos. Anyway, I'm very proud nonetheless.
Even though you write your own music, there are a lot of songs on this album that are covers that are inspired by bands bands from Atlantic Canada. Tell us a bit about the song selection that went into picking the songs that went onto this album. What inspired you to pick those particular songs?
Sure. Well, I wanted to do ones that were recognizable from days of yore and modern times as well. So we have, classics, Eyes the By, the Acadian classic Réveil by Zachary Richard, Northern Lights of Labrador. It seemed to be, there was also Labrador Rose. It was a toss-up between those two, but it seemed that most people were familiar with that one, the Corey and Trina version.
Corey and Trina version,
yeah. So I picked that one, and Lester the Lobster by Steve Dorsteve, who's actually a New Brunswicker for PEI. And I also did The Land of New Brunswick, which is the official theme song of New Brunswick, but nobody really knows it. And nobody really knows that it is the official theme song. So I wanted to do that. And I also did a spoken word reciting of the Dungarvan Hooper, which is a well-known ghost story from Miramichi, where I now reside. And then also, like I was saying, there's some modern songs. In-Flight Safety was covered. Coast is Clear, very Atlantic Canadian sounding song. And Weighty Ghost by Winter Sleep does Weighty Ghost. So the modern is represented as well. And even with the traditional songs, there were... the arrangements were kind of modernized. Yeah, so basically I just wanted to do songs that people were familiar with. There are 8 originals, and they were just inspired by my life here in the East Coast and the landscape and the traditional music as well as the modern music.
We're back on the Songwriters. I'm your host, Terry Parsons. My guest today is Eldon Thiel, also known as ZWERG. We're featuring music from his 6th album, which is Whims and Words. Now, you've been nominated for Music NB 8 times.
8 times, yeah, that's including the Fans' Choice Awards too, which is for the 3 years that they've had the awards. Anybody who's nominated is nominated for that as well. So it's more like 5 nominations plus 3 Fans' Choice. But it looks better to say 8.
It's great though to get a bit of recognition from a great organization like Music NB. Even being nominated is a real honor.
Yes, certainly it certainly is, and. For me, it's not about winning. I always like what Sting said: "Music is its own reward." But I'm really just in awe of what Jean Surette has done with Music New Brunswick. It's really what we needed, because we've always been behind the other Atlantic Canadian provinces, let alone the rest of the Canadian provinces, in terms of propagating and perpetuating our musical culture. So the Acadians are the exception. They've always done a wonderful job at that, but the Anglophones not so much. So Miramichi is kind of the exception too, because there's such a rich Irish heritage here with the Irish Festival and everything, and they have the Miramichi Folk Song Festival, and that's really been championed a lot. But for the most part, we were behind the Acadians. So I want to give shout outs to all the people who played on this album, because there are a lot of well-known East Coast Canadian artists that generously lent their talents to this project. John Mullane from In-Flight Safety, based out of Halifax, but he's actually a Monktonian like me. He helped me produce the album and he mixed it. Robin Ann Eddles played on a lot of the tracks. She's incredible. Dan Bourgeois, incredible drummer, plays for Melanie Morgan, George Belleville, Chris Cummings. Tim Isaac from Love Storm played beautiful cellos. Stacey Ricker used to be from the band Sol. Alex Madsen from the Divorcees. Dominique Dupuis, the fiddler. Nell Keith, Mark Gadet from Elevator to Hell. My sister, Devin Quinn. I couldn't have done this without any of them. It was a labor of love, sure. But fortunately, I got some funding from the Music Industry Development Program in New Brunswick. They've been amazing. I mean, so many of us wouldn't be able to make anything that's, not amateur sounding, something that's more world class without their funding. Because, the economy sucks right now. Nobody has any money.
Now that you have got Whims and Words in hand, are you pleased with the finished product?
I'm very pleased, yeah. It was certainly a statement. It was very organic, something different for me. It's kind of, I toned down kind of the eccentricity of my music and everything and tried to make it a bit more mainstream, but also with folk references. And it's very diverse. I've always been a diverse cat, and I've been much derided for that. But that's okay with me. I mean, my influences run across the board, and some of my favorite albums are arguably incohesive or incongruous, so in terms of arrangements. Yeah, I make no apologies for any of the criticisms that might come for the album.
So now, what does the future hold? What's your next project?
Well, being diverse, I'm going a different direction completely.
Really?
Still piano at the Central, but it's more of a... it's actually like a piano dance pop rock album.
Really?
So a lot of programmed dance beats, actually, with acoustic piano over top.
Okay.
And at first I was like, oh, gee, I don't know if this is going to work. But as I'm moving along, I'm starting to like it. I think it's kind of worked because disco music, for example, in the 70s, they didn't have programmed beats like techno beats like we have now.
Yeah.
They had acoustic instruments, well, electric instruments, but, you know, live instruments that are played live, live bass, live drums, live piano, live strings, and it was danceable. So fusing that with modern technology has been really exciting, and I think it's working in terms of what I think, anyway.
You also have a really cool website, which is www.zwerg.ca. For the web surfing fan, what can they expect to find there?
The website was done by Jessica Ray and Daniel Ledwell from the band In-Flight Safety. He did all the graphic design for this album and the website as well. Jessica Ray designed the actual website, I guess, but all the graphics were done by Dan. And the two of them have just really brought to life what I saw in my mind for the sound. The visual has always been very important to me, almost as important as the sonic. So in the artwork of the album, for example, the work that Dan did and the photography, it's just really amazing. It's an artwork in itself. And the same can be said for the website. So please check it out, done by Jessica Ray.
Right, and that's www.zwerg.ca. Eldon, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Terry. Thanks so much.